Okay, so we're picking up where we left off yesterday. We didn't get to the back of our guided practice. These are really similar to the bell work that you did yesterday and also the bell work you're doing today. What you have to do is you have to use those angle relationships, and hopefully you should still have your notes from yesterday, as well as whether those relationships are congruent or supplementary to each other to set up these equations and solve for x. That's all you have to do here is solve for x. You do not actually have to find those angle measurements. So again, congruent means that the angle measurements are the same. Supplementary means that the sum, or adding up those two angles, are going to equal 180 degrees. So I'm going to do a couple with you. Make sure you put them on your paper, and then you will be responsible for some of these other problems on your own. I'm not going to ask you to do all of them, but I am going to ask you to do the ones that you do independently perfectly perfect. So let's look at number 11 here. And we have to first recognize what type of angle relationship we're seeing. You can see that this angle and this angle here are in the same relative position, just in different intersections. That means those are corresponding angles, if you have your notes in front of you from the other day. And corresponding angles, you can see how they're both acute angles, are going to be congruent to each other. They're going to have the same measurement. So we can use that to set up our equation. If they're going to measure the same thing, that means we can set up our equation as 9x plus 11 is equal to 10x plus 5. Once you have your equation set up, you're using those multi-step equation steps that we still have on the board at front to help you solve for x here. So that's don't call me after midnight. And again, you're going to go pull out the skill that we've done previously, go through each of those steps to figure out, do I need to do that here to solve for x? D is distribute, and I don't have any parentheses, so I'm not going to do that step. C would be to combine like terms on just one side of the equal sign, and 9x and 11 are not the same type of term, so you can't combine those. 10x and 5 are not the same type of term, so we can't combine those either. So we would move to the next step. The first M stands for move a variable, and you see how we have a variable on both sides of the equal sign. That means we have to move one using addition or subtraction, the inverse operation of whatever is there. I want to move this 9x to keep my variable positive. It's already a positive 9x, so the inverse operation tells me to subtract that 9x from both sides. Notice how I subtracted from like terms because the x's have to go with the x's, the constants have to go with each other. 9x minus 9x is 0 pair, so I get left with 11 on this side. 10x minus 9x is 1x, and then I still have that plus 5. My next step to check for here is to add or subtract a constant. We have to get rid of this plus 5 because it's still on the same side as the x. We never want to move this number here towards the x. We never want to leave a 0 on this side here. So we would move that plus 5. It's already a plus, so the inverse operation tells us to subtract 5 from both sides. 0 pair leaves us x equals 11 minus 5, which is 6. We do not have to do this last step, which is multiply or divide, because we do not have to separate the coefficient and the variable here. Notice we already have 1x, which is what we are looking for when we're solving an equation. So that's one example of if your angle measurements are congruent, if they're equal to each other, how you're going to set up your equation. You're going to set up those where they're equal to each other. Again, I don't have to plug in this 6 back into these angles to find the measurement. I'm only solving for x here. So I want to show you a couple more. I want to show you one that is where, I'm going to show you one more where they're congruent to each other, and then I'm going to show you I'll show you two more where they're supplementary, so you can see, again, how to set those up. So number 12, we're looking at, again, they're We've got to figure out the angle relationship first. We have angles on opposite sides of the transversal, but they're inside those parallel lines, which means this angle relationship is alternate interior, and alternate interior angles are also congruent. That means they're going to equal each other. So this as a whole does equal 60 degrees, but we're not trying to figure out what this angle measurement is as a whole. We're trying to figure out what that x equals. So we're going to set up -5 plus 13x equals 60 degrees because those two angle measurements are going to equal each other. And then once you have it set up, you're just going to go through those don't call me after midnight steps. D is for distribute. We don't have to do that because we don't have parentheses. C is combine like terms. Well, -5 and 13x are not like terms, so we can't combine them. And then 60 is by itself, so we can't combine anything with that. The M, move a variable. We do not have a variable on both sides. All we have is that 13x here, which means we don't have to move a variable either. So then I'm going to move to add or subtract a constant. Here, we do have to add or subtract a constant. We don't want to move the 60 because that would leave nothing on that side. That means we do have to move the -5. The inverse operation tells us that that's a -5, which is what that negative is. We're going to do the opposite and add 5 to both sides. Zero pair there. We get a 13x left on that side, and then 60 plus 5 is 65. M, this last step, is to multiply or divide, and we only do that when we have to separate a coefficient from the variable like I have here. This 13 needs to go away. We need to have the x by itself. 13x means 13 times x. So the opposite of multiplication is to divide, and we always divide with the number we're trying to remove. Anything we do to one side, we do the same thing to the other. 13 divided by 13 is 1x, which is what we're looking for. 65 divided by 13 is 5. So that would be the answer to our problem. X equals 5. So those are how you set up congruent angles as equations. We're going to look at two more where if they're supplementary, how do you set those up? I'm going to change colors for my supplementary here. Looking at number 14. Again, first we have to check what is the angle relationship. So we're looking at two angles here. They're inside the parallel lines, but they are on the same side of the transversal. When that happens, those are same side interior, and same side interior angles are not congruent. Together, they add up to 180 degrees. So you have an acute angle and an obtuse angle beside each other. Together, they will add up to 180. So we're going to set them up as equal to 180 if we add them together. So 69 plus 12x plus 15, that's the two angles added together, will equal 180 degrees because they're supplementary. Then once we have our equation set up, we're just going through those don't call me after midnight steps. We do not have to distribute because we don't have parentheses, but we do have to combine like terms here. See that you have a constant and another constant on the same side of that equal sign. So they have to be put together before anything else can happen. 69 plus 15 is 84. And then we still have that plus 12x on that side equals 180 on that side. We do not have to move a variable because we only have one variable on one side of the equal sign, right here. But we do have to add or subtract a constant because we have this number, 84, on the same side as the x still. That can't happen. We don't want to move 180 because that would leave us nothing on this side. We have a positive 84 to move, so inverse operations tells us to subtract 84 on both sides. There's a zero pair. And we're going to have 12x left here. 180 minus 84 equals 96. The last step is to multiply or divide the coefficient away. The coefficient is the 12 that's attached to the x. This means multiplication. We're going to divide with the number we want to remove. Divide by 12 on the other side. 12 divided by 12 gives us the 1x we're looking for, and then 96 divided by 12 equals 8. Again, that's how you're setting up a problem that is supplementary to each other, okay? Supplementary, the angles equal 180 degrees. So let's look at one more. This time I'm going to skip down to number 17. There's quite a few of these where you see two angles here that make up that straight line. We talked about yesterday that if two angles put together make a straight line, they also equal 180 degrees. So they're going to be supplementary to each other. We said it the same way we did this problem up here. If they're supplementary, we're going to add them together. 29x plus 3 plus 31x minus 3 is going to equal 180 degrees. And then we start going through our steps. No distribution because we don't have any parentheses, but we actually have two sets of like terms here. We have variables on the same side that need to be put together, and we also have two constants on the same side that need to be put together. 29x plus 31x equals 60x, but 3 minus 3 is a zero pair, so those will actually cancel out. You still are left with 60x equals 180 degrees. We do not have to move a variable because we only have one variable on one side. We do not even have to add or subtract a constant because we already have the variable on one side across from the constant on the other. The last step is going to be to divide away our coefficient. Divide by the number we're trying to remove. X equals 180 divided by 60, which is 3. 18 divided by 6 is 3, so 180 divided by 60 is also 3. All right, so hopefully you have those down. You're going to do your very best. You can pick the easier ones, that's okay. Your job is to pick 4 of the leftover problems. There's 5 problems left over. You're going to pick 4 of those to complete on your own. Okay, 4 of those problems to complete on your own. And then tomorrow, I'm going to ask your teacher to check that work and see who completed those 4 problems. So you guys can get that credit for doing that. Okay. Good luck. Make sure you do these 4 problems. Miss Bradley has an answer key, so after you've completed your 4 problems, she can check your work for you. Okay. Once you feel good about it, you can move on to your Go Math assignment that is on hrw.com. All right.